now I just gotta find her. Hi. Hello. So let's see. Oh!
Really?
Oh, buddy. You didn't even pretend to find your feet, did you? You're okay. I promise. Did you scare yourself a bit? You're alright. Take a deep breath. You're okay. You got this. That's my boy. You're alright. Here, I'm gonna get her in here. Okay, thank you. You're alright. You're okay. Driving me crazy. Sorry. No, it's not your fault.
Hi.
There she is. There we go. Hi, friend.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Alright, buddy. I'm gonna put you down. You got free range, alright? Stay on my plants. You're alright. You got it. Come here. Your feet are just on the ground. It is fine. Alright, let me turn up the volume so I can actually hear people. And, hey, Mouse.
Yes.
Is there a way to make it so that she and I are side by side? So that it's more
yes,
of a conversation? Keep the baby's picture out of the face. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Alright. There is. Julie, I'm gonna drop you just for a second so I can get the side by side.
Okay.
Sorry, I use mouse to help me technology. Why isn't it let? Where? There it is. Host. Oh, why won't it let me host with you? You've got enough followers. So she was saying that they were waiting to verify her age. Could that be part of it? That could be part of it, yes. Which is really weird. They won't even let me on my other page live because they think I'm under 16. They did the same thing to me too. Yeah, isn't that weird? Because, I'm damn near 30. All right, we're going to have to go guest. Because it's not going to let you do the side-by-side until the age verification goes through. Do you think... Okay. All right. I thought there was ways of, switching between... Yeah, I thought so, too, but... Like, how the, How the window appears for guests. Right. Ooh, expand.
Okay,
but do it that way. You want to do it that way? Yeah, we can switch. Because I think there's a way to switch back and forth from who's on, the big part of the screen. If I remember correctly. Okay, the echo in my ear is driving me crazy.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize there was the whole verification, how to hold your ID up. I didn't know.
I gave up on what they do a long time ago.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right, buddy. I'm gonna put you down. Okay. Why don't you go find Bailey? Oh, Bailey's upstairs. Why don't you go find Bluey? Look, he's right here. Bluey has seen better days. All right, Kukula. Here you go. Yeah, stay out of my plants. Oh, good morning. Afternoon. We're on afternoon.
Yeah, sorry about the snafu. So could it still work that I could add mods, or honestly,
Yeah.
I trust that you'll keep things calm and cool. I'm not really worried about people getting out of pocket. I mean, you know,
It's what I'm here for. Well, so also if you have somebody, because I know you had people who are willing to, yesterday I think I saw, if you
yeah.
point them out in the chat, I can make them a mod.
Okay.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? If you're just like, hey, it's that one right there, and give me their name, I can make them a mod. And that way we've got someone on both sides, right?
All right, so Tony's about to comment, and then we can add her. And then my other girl, I think she's thrown off because she probably thinks it's on my platform. So,
Well, it should show up that you're live, right?
okay.
Even as a guest. So,
Yeah, well,
Tony, add moderator. Okay. And then mouse
Oh, this
is.
I'm saying it doesn't show up that I'm live. You know why? Because I probably don't, because I don't have live status, maybe.
Oh, I don't know.
You know why? Yeah. Because I'm just like a guest on, your live, so it's probably not doing that whole Julie's live.
Well, when Mouse was on the other day, it told me that Mouse was live, even though it wasn't
Even though it wasn't
Mouse
your live.
hosting.
Okay.
yeah, as long as if you're a guest in anything or if you're co-hosting, it'll still show you as
Is it
hosting
showing that I'm
or
live?
as being live.
Tony. It is?
It's showing.
It's showing that I'm live. Okay, cool. Well,
I didn't want to hold your hand anyway.
are you live? Okay. Cool. It says you live, Julie. All right. Hold on. Okay. So if you want, I mean, it's whatever you're comfortable with, as far as like who's in the big box, but I mean, I guess we can just switch back and forth if Mouse wants to help with just switching us back and forth on the big screen with whoever's talking. But I guess I'll just quickly say, like, I think I told you, like, 6 months in, you're the first person I came across that has approached me, I think, with a willingness to have honest dialogue, and I mean, that's huge. So I want to honor that. Again, I'm not expecting miracles, but I think the fact that we've been able to show that we're willing and want to have healthy dialogue is huge. And, it's 11:39. I want to be respectful of people's time. So what I like expectations of this conversation, I would just like us to share some thoughts, discuss a few things, and maybe just have a hard stop at 12:30, and depending on how it goes, maybe we do it again next week, or but just kind of just like a test run, right?
Yeah.
If that sounds good to you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works. I'm free until the big kid gets home, so outside of a free-ranging feral toddler, I'm pretty much free to discuss. So
Okay, cool. So, I mean, it's your platform, so I want to give you, the right if you want to talk first, or if you want me to just kind of kick it off, and then we'll see how things go. I'm just kind of going with the flow with this.
well, I think in the good words of Dr. Rashad Ritchie, no one should assume anyone's kind of stance. So if you'd like to take a moment and like state what your stance is and what your view is, so that like there aren't any kind of assumptions being made, and kind of what you're looking to talk about today.
Sure. Thank you for that. So I guess what I'll do is I'll state my stance, and then I'll just talk about my impressions of how you and I kind of met on this platform, and what the posts were that kind of brought you into the conversation on my platform. I want to be, again, respectful of time. I'm not going to go into entire background of me as a person, but as a person, I'm 41. I got kids. I'm Jewish, raised Jewish. Both my parents are Jewish. I wouldn't necessarily call myself extremely observant, but I was bat mitzvahed, went to Hebrew school, did that whole nine. And the phenomenon wave that came over me since October 7th was the wave of Zionism. And what is Zionism? And as someone who hadn't even really understood what Zionism was until October 7th, it's been a learning process as far as understanding, really just kind of putting words to what my initial beliefs were, not realizing that that's what it was. And I know I'm kind of talking a bit in circles, so I'll try to explain a little further. But so I want to talk about how you came into my post and my platform, because there's two particular posts that I put up that you had commented on, which started our dialogue and our conversation. And the first one, 6 months in now, was highlighting the fact that we as Jews, and I say as Jews, and what I mean is as Jews who believe in Jewish safety and Jewish rights to self-determination in Israel, not instead of anybody else, in addition to anybody else who has a right to safety. And I think it's important to make that distinction, because I think that there is this assumption people make of Zionists, that they believe that Zionists, it's our safety and nobody else's. It's our safety instead of somebody else's, or in replacement of somebody else's. And I think that it is important to make that distinction, that that is not the case for me. That might be the case for far-right government officials, for Bibi Netanyahu, for far-right extremists, but most Zionist Jews do not believe that. And I'm talking in circles, but when I shared that with you, you were surprised. And I credit that surprise to this platform because of the algorithm and the way that it's designed, that the second you share and follow certain content, and that is, you know how algorithms work, that is the content that you are going to continuously see. And before you know it, before you realize, you have views about a group of people or a person that you had no control over, because it was all that you were seeing. So, trying to stay on track. So the post that I put up was basically highlighting that we will never forget that after the atrocities of the 7th, and after our loved ones and our brothers and sisters and our babies and our grandparents were stolen, and when we put up posters of our brothers and sisters and our babies and our family members that were stolen, that they were so, people were so hateful to tear down the posters, and that we will never forget that. And you came into the conversation, and I know that you didn't mean to be insensitive. I know this. But you came into the conversation to say, well, posters being ripped is not as severe as the massive unaliving in Gaza. And you went on, my understanding is you went on to kind of say, and I know I'm jumping back to a few videos that we've had, which is why I'm glad that we're having this conversation, but you went on to say that you do not find it helpful to talk about stuff that happened 5 months ago, that it was a conversation that should have happened 5 months ago, that the highlight should be on the on Gaza, and on stopping unaliving in Gaza, and on focusing on safety of innocent people in Gaza. Before I continue, is that a correct understanding of kind of where we came to?
Yeah, I would say like my primary focus is, ending what's happening in Gaza, because that will directly relate, in my view, to keeping both Palestinians and Israelis safe.
Okay.
Right? And so if the goal is protecting human life, for me, the very first way to do that would be to put an end to what's happening today.
Okay. So understanding that, the reason why I am so passionate and repetitive and vocal is because of the response of the 7th and the lack thereof. It's because that on October 7th, the immediate response was not, oh, this horrific attack on Israel. It was an opportunity for people to open up history books and have a dialogue of this didn't happen in a vacuum. What were the events that led up to this attack? That Israelis, our brothers and sisters, our families, did not have an opportunity to grieve and really address the magnitude, of what exactly happened on the 7th, because people took to streets, millions took to streets in protest in support of what happened on October 7th. And on top of that, when we put up posters of our loved ones that were stolen, those people tore down the posters of our family members. So we cannot forget that, because what happened on the 8th and the 9th, and retaliations didn't happen until after October 13th, because it was October 13th, which is when they started to drop the leaflets. So people say that there was this immediate response from Israel. It wasn't the next day. The next day is when people responded in support of what H Group did, calling them freedom fighters, calling them liberators, praising them for the slaughter. And that was juxtaposed with the people that were denying the slaughter and the actual events, saying that, oh, Israel did it to its own people. Oh, there was not mass rape. Oh, there was not, while holding the same truth that an 8.5-month-old baby was taken. So even if, let's just say in a wackadoo universe, that H Group broke in, did not unalive anybody, but stole an 8.5-month-old baby and brought him back into Gaza, that would have been enough, Dianu, that would have been enough to spark outrage, but it wasn't. It wasn't enough to spark worldwide outrage. It sparked worldwide celebration for the killing of Jews in the name of Allah, because that's what they were screaming. They were praising Allahu Akbar. They were elated and joyed. And again, I didn't watch the footage because I cannot bring myself to. I can't. But I know people who have, and we know that it exists, and I know that you accept that it exists, because that's the only reason we're having this conversation, that people were praising this in the name of their God. Glory to all the Jews that they unalived. So October 7th, the events of October 7th, the theft of our people, the women that, honestly, I hope that they have passed on, and I will say that publicly, because to think that they are still alive, enduring the reality that I think that would be the reality, is too much to handle. But the point is, their posters were ripped down. The point is, the events of October 7th was celebrated. It was celebrated and encouraged more of. A global day of jihad. I'm not going to split hairs on what people define jihad is. A global call to unalive more Jews worldwide, not just in Israel, worldwide. This encouragement to attack the Jewish people. It was just as if it was just this like tiny cliff note of exactly what happened. And then silence of how Israel should have responded to that day. Because I have the documentation on my end, conversations with people trying to unpack exactly what happened, trying to understand exactly what happened with social media and all these things flying left and right. Everybody wanting to criticize, but nobody wanting to provide solutions. I know that you had said, well, special forces and maybe cutting off some resources and stuff, and Israel did that. My understanding is Israel did cut off electricity or water. Is that right? Didn't they do that?
Yeah.
So, they did. And they, I don't want to just like talk on for hours because I want you to give you an opportunity because I want this to be a discussion and not just a Julie monologue. But my point is that nobody ever acknowledged Jewish-Israeli pain. It was from the moment it happened, we were being blamed for existing. We as Jewish people, we as Israelis, the narrative that we're all white colonial settlers, and regardless of what you personally feel on that, to deny the existence of Mizrahi Jews that had lived there all along. That I want to highlight that I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert, that so much I'm trying to learn as I go, and I'm trying to diversify my sources, and I'm trying to check myself when I'm talking on things that I don't know enough about. So all I can really say, as a Jewish person, when we only make up 0.2% of the world's population, only 15 million of us, as a Jewish person, when Jewish people are slaughtered, we all feel it because there are so few of us. And to be automatically catapulted into a position on this platform, whether or not I want to, I'm tokenized because I'm Jewish and I'm on this platform. So no matter what I say, my words are being used to support somebody or as a gotcha for somebody or as a opportunity for somebody to come into my comment section and say hateful things that don't even know me, make assumptions about Zionism and they don't even know me, because you didn't know that me as a Zionist Jew, that I loathe Bibi Netanyahu and I loathe any far-right extremist thinking, and that does not exclude far-right radical Islam or whatever, like any far-right thinking of any kind. I loathe. And that's why, again, I'm encouraged to have a conversation with you, because more people need to realize that just because you follow somebody on a platform does not mean that you share the views of that person on the platform to the T, that we need to challenge ourselves to follow people that we don't agree with so we can learn, so we can have conversations, so you can have discussions like, well, why is it you feel that way? I would like to know, out of curiosity. And then that's how you grow. That people are so polarized with their beliefs that there's no in between. And that it's like she's a Jewish Zionist, and so I immediately hate her, and she's a Yahtzee, which is just completely insane to call a Jewish person a Yahtzee. So I want to be honest about what I don't know, and what I don't know is actual death toll in Gaza, because I'm being honest that I do not trust the Gaza Health Ministry, because the Gaza Health Ministry is run by H Group. And I don't trust H Group because H Group, I'm saying, is a T organization. That does not mean that I don't believe that innocent people have suffered and continue to suffer in Gaza. That does not mean that I don't care about innocent life in Gaza. That does not mean that I don't believe that the Palestinian people are deserving of safety and freedom. The only difference between us is I encourage their safety and freedom and liberation to come with a government that cares about them, that wants what's best for them. So I know I said a lot, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to say what you think.
So
If Mouse wants to put you on the big screen or whatever you want to do, or
let's see for a minute. Let's see. Maybe I can do this on my. I don't even know what I'm doing. Actually, let's be real about it. But yes, please. I will say, while Mouse is helping me figure out technology, even though we are on different sides of the conflict, right? I'm actually going to watch and make sure I know how this is.
And just a reminder, I'm not really looking at the comments, I don't mean to cut you off, but everybody in the comment section, please allow, and I'm sorry, I don't know your government name, so I'm just gonna call you Sober Squirrel, whatever you're comfortable with. Please allow this creator and myself to model that you can be respectful towards one another. And that I really hope that people are being respectful towards one another in the comment section. Because it's, the more arguing, the more digs, the more subliminal pokes here and there, it's not helpful. So
So I will say, even though you and I are on different sides of like the support spectrum, for lack of a better term, I don't think our overall view is that different, right? I do think that we both genuinely want to see the safety of both Palestinian and Jewish individuals, you know what I mean? I will say I am going to push back a little bit on the idea that those who weren't Jewish didn't feel or mourn the atrocity that happened on October 7th. Because I did watch a lot of video of people going to the street and demanding an outcry for what happened on October 7th. And I do know that we both 100% agree that what happened on the 7th was deplorable, it was uncalled for, and it was deeply, deeply immoral. And my view of that doesn't change, regardless of what the Israeli government does after that. You know what I mean? What their response was. I think that social media had a wonderful potential to bring people in the world together, right? And nefarious actors on both sides of that spectrum actively work to rage farm. Hi, handsome. I gotta go tell Aunt Lucy all your stories. And so I do think in some ways, right? So some amazing things have happened because of apps like TikTok, right? And it's to be able to get information out in mass. It also unfortunately gives some really immoral individuals the ability to voice their opinion too. And when you were talking about the sort of bubbles, the algorithm bubbles that we get stuck in, those things start to get highlighted, right? And so I do think it is important, right? You can dislike an idea, right, without hating the individual. And it's hard. It's so hard because this is a deeply emotional topic. We're talking about human lives, whether we're talking about October 7th or we're talking about Israel's campaign against Gaza as a whole. We're speaking about human lives and human lives lost. Yeah, I mean, that, I guess that would be my main pushback, is to like really encourage every single individual on this app, right, to make sure that you are actively, without the intention of gotcha moments and rage farming and all this other stuff, but actively make an effort to not only go and look at different publications, right? So if you're pro-Palestinian, get off of Al Jazeera and go to Haaretz and Israeli publications and see what is being said on that side too. Because one thing that is very clear is that there is an expensive and intense propaganda war on both sides. I don't think we are going to have a true idea of all of the things that have been going on in this conflict until years after it's over. So it's important to be able to look at both sides of the information and look at the footage that is coming out and to be able to be empathetic and humane about the opinions that we then draw from that and subsequently who we choose to support because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I can definitely respond to that if you're ready for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do this without Mouse's help.
Okay.
I am capable. Haha. Here we go. Look, I did it.
So I think you touched upon it, but I'd like to expand on that because you said both sides, and I think that the main issue is those definitions of sides that people took to the streets with their pom-poms as if it was a sporting event and choosing teams when they missed the mark. It should have been, the side should have been standing for humanity versus standing for people that oppose humanity, T organizations. And I will, on record, I will lump Bibi into that category, okay? I want to make that clear. Far-right extremism, Bibi Netanyahu, far-right extremism, and T organizations, that those should have been the two sides from the beginning. But instead, it was pro-Palestinian, and I use quotes and I'll explain, versus
Hi, puppy.
he's gonna lose his privileges. Hold on. Squeezy, good boy. Good boy, protect the house. Good boy. Chef. Hey, chef. Good boy. I know. Little puppy. Sorry.
Is he named Chef because he will make you a sandwich of cuddles?
So, teachable moment, it's SHEV, Shev, which means sit in Hebrew.
Oh, nice.
So, I don't speak fluent Hebrew. Ani yuda kitzat ivrit, nachon? I'm talking to my friend Tony. Kitzat. Kitzat is little.
Yes.
Kelev, K-E-L-E-V, means dog in Hebrew. So that's his name. And he knows a little Hebrew, which is Shev, S-H-E-V. So that immediately we were split into people that were solely for Palestinian freedom and liberation and people that were you're going to push back on me on this, but people that were for all humanity. And I say all humanity because, again, Zionism doesn't exclude Jewish Zionism. And I say Jewish Zionism because unfortunately we're lumped into all Zionists. And, and I only want to speak on what I'm comfortable with and what I know enough about. So I can only speak on Jewish Zionism.
So real quick,
Yeah.
and I'll let you finish your thought, but I do a little bit want to, you're right, I was going to push back on the idea because it is so far from binary, right? Now we have groups that are on one end and the other, but the vast majority of individual people, right, are on the spectrum. They're somewhere in between that idea of standing for humanity as a whole and just being pro-Palestinian. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I do see a spectrum there.
Huge.
Sorry, that was the one I wanted to add, is that it may feel binary, but it's not binary, if that makes sense.
Which highlights that it took us 6 months for the algorithm gods that be to counteract with each other, give each other enough grace to get to the point where we're able to have dialogue. Because armor is up, and you see it in the comment section, and you see it in every single post. You can't detect tone. People asking questions in good faith, depending on whose post it is and who the creator is, are not going to be interpreted as a good faith question because they think that somebody's just coming in to troll, when in all actuality, somebody's just coming in to get clarification on something. Somebody asks for a resource or cite a source, somebody's going to read that and say, oh, you're just being stank. Like, I'm not, Google is free, whatever, when that person could have been coming in good faith, asking for a source because they want to learn more about it.
Right.
Again, and that just goes into the whole, this platform is toxic. But back to the both sides is that just as in shock as you were when I tried to, when I explained to you that most Jewish Zionists, that that many of us don't align with the views of the Israeli government and Bibi, that many of us just want Jewish safety and self-determination, that doesn't exclude safety and self-determination of Palestinian people, that just like you said that was shocking for you to hear, you saying that the response that you saw as a result of the atrocities of October 7th, that you saw people protesting that, it wasn't loud enough. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't loud enough. That immediately the social media war ignited, and it was calculated. And I said that the word G-side was already being used before any action was taken in Gaza as a result of October 7th. The word G-side was already being, the language was already being plugged here and there. Step 1, call it a G-side. Step 2, make all Jews and Israelis white. Step 3, label all Jews and Israelis illegal white colonial settler oppressors. Step 4, Palestinian people are infantilized and not capable of making their own decisions. All Palestinian people are brown. All Israelis and Jews are white. Israelis and Jews bad. Palestinian people good. And that was like, it was all orchestrated and calculated by who? People that pull the strings on this platform, by the far right extremists. And I mean, I throw out, I use the terminology watermelon warriors, useful idiots, because, and again, I want to catch myself because I want to be mindful and respectful. Because as one of 15 million, my voice, my Jewish voice on this platform in general was silenced from the beginning, as if somebody telling me what Judaism is, somebody telling me what Zionism is, somebody telling me what my feelings are on the Israeli government without even knowing me, somebody telling me how I feel about Palestinian people, Palestinian safety and liberation, that my voice never mattered, that it was automatically people that watched a few TikToks that were experts on years and years and years of a conflict that experts still have challenges with verbalizing and talking about, because it is complex, and people saying that it's not that complex, it's brown, white, oppressors are oppressed. People were never able to have these conversations because immediately it was the accusation that Israelis and Jews are genocidal maniacs, and that all Palestinian people are victims, and it should never have been that black and white. And to this day, it's not that black and white, because people like to pick and choose what they want to categorize H group as. Is H group a freedom fighter liberation? Are they the governing body of Gaza? And if they are all those things, what did they do leading up to October 7th and on October 7th to help the Palestinian people? Because, you know, it's 12:11 now. I'd like us to have a hard stop at 12:30, so I'll cut myself off momentarily. But I could tell that we know that there's so much more to talk about. And that kind of gets into the next part of the conversation, is like, you know, we're playing what truths do we hold game, right? Because
Can I ask why there is a hard stop at 12:30? Just because I feel like we have just now started getting into the substance of the conversation.
I gotta get my kids, but I can go till 12:45. I can push it to 12:45. I can't do too much because
I understand.
but you're right. I mean, we are just kind of getting to, yeah. That people, again, and I value that we're both able to understand
Miles?
that multiple things can be true at the same time.
This one's good.
And unfortunately, that's when so many conversations aren't able to happen because people aren't able to recognize that multiple things can be true at the same time. That you can want the liberation and safety of the Palestinian people while also recognizing and accepting that H group has done nothing to help the Palestinian people and continues to do nothing to help the Palestinian people. And the fact that unfortunately you're among the minority, from what I've seen in the algorithm world, is that you're among the minority of somebody that actually accepts the atrocities of the 7th to the extent, and again, I'm not splitting hairs on how many people were actually raped, because those types of conversations, again, aren't helpful, but that you can accept that it happened to the extent of it happened, while also accepting that they're not all Israelis and Jews are, believe the same thing, that you want the safety and liberation of Palestinian people. But what I take issue with is the attention and emphasis and ignoring the hostages and ignoring the response of what happened after October 7th. Because again, you said it's a conversation that we should have had 5 months ago. Nobody was listening to us. Nobody wants to listen to us. This platform itself, I'm on my 3rd account because I've been bananaed 3 times because people like to, stick their people on my account. And I mean, over the silliest things. And, and I take ownership because we've said this to each other. Like I try, I'll come with sass and I match energy, but I really try not to be a hateful, harmful person. So that Jewish Israeli creators and accounts, and I know that, Palestinian accounts or pro-Palestinian accounts will say the same thing, but optics-wise, platform-wise, the fact that there are only 15 million of us in the world and, less than that on this platform, it's not very favorable for us to get our voice out there. So not only were we not able to get our voice out there, but the platform restricts us. And then in that time, and that's the only reason why I stay on this platform, because my voice has to count for something, even if it's just one person that I'm able to have a conversation with. But in that time, the wave of hate grows and the assumptions grow and it gets worse and worse and worse. And stories are put out there without a care in the world, reckless, damage is already caused, and retractions are never followed up. The hospital bombing at the beginning of the war, it wasn't a bombing, it was a rocket that misfired that exploded in the parking lot. But Israel is still blamed. And that ignited, just added fuel to the flames of the fire, ignited hatred. Jews bad, Israel bad. And people can say, this isn't about Jews worldwide, while they're actively ignoring the rise in anti-Semitism. And to say, oh, there's a rise in Islamophobia too, it's not competition. It's not one or the other. 400+% in the US versus, and I'll be honest, does anybody know in the comment section what the percent rise is in Islamophobia in the US? If anybody wants to throw it out there, and please cite a source if you can. But people want to say, oh, you call me anti-Semitic because I'm critical of the Israeli government, and not you, because we talked about this. And it's like, no, be critical of the Israeli government, but are you zooming out? Are you using that same criticism across the American government, across all predominantly Muslim countries in the Middle East? Are you, is it just Israel? And why is it just Israel? Coincidentally, Israel just happens to be the one majority Jewish state, so again, I don't want to play the assumption game. So I really do appreciate that we're talking, and I'll turn it back over to you. But why I pushed back at you so hard is because we still have our families. and our sisters and our babies in Gaza, that the Red Cross hasn't checked on them once. In what universe is that okay? And in what universe is that, oh, we should have had a conversation 5 months ago? They shouldn't have been there this long, you know? They should have been home by now. And it shouldn't be, we'll release them when you release all of the Palestinian prisoners. Because again, people want to say that, but they can't provide a name of a Palestinian prisoner where we can look at their record, because guess what? In the Palestinian prisons, they're receiving medical attention, they're receiving education. I'm not saying it's like, you know, a spa, but it's not the same. It's not the same. This is an 8.5-month-old baby versus somebody that was arrested. And yes, we can talk about why they were there, what they were doing, why they got arrested, but it's not equivalent. So I know I mentioned a lot of things, but I do want to turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you. Again, and I will probably say it 100 more times while we talk. I am grateful for the conversation. I do think that it's important. I also do think that, again, we continue to acknowledge the information bubble that we are in, because there are a couple times where you had been stating things that you see from pro-Palestinian individuals that is not appropriate behavior. And I, caught myself thinking, I've seen those exact same actions on the other side. And I do think when it comes to your comment about matching energies, right? You and I both admit that we are guilty of this. And in fact, I had a whole conversation with my nephew, who pointed out, like, you're going to get more with honey, right? And there is almost, again, for lack of a better term, a like social media trauma response within these kinds of conversations, right? Because you and I, after a couple of back and forths, I could very clearly see that even though we didn't agree, you weren't actively trying just to fight, right? You were trying to have a dialogue. Whereas other individuals who came across our conversation very clearly didn't, right? And so again, I think it's important that we look at the spectrum of humans, right? Because nobody, regardless of what side of the conflict you're on, is going to be in the same place on that spectrum at the same time as somebody else. I do think that for individuals on social media, Lincoln, that is my plant. Move along, please. Thank you. When it comes to social media and having these types of conversations, our end goal can't be to win. Our end goal can't be to be the absolute right person in the conversation.
Not to cut you off, but that's why I didn't want to call it a debate. That's why I didn't call it a debate, because it wasn't about.
And I appreciated using that language, right? It's not a debate, it's a discussion. I'm not here with the expectation to change your mind. I'm here with the expectation for myself to gain understanding, right? Because we as humans can understand something without accepting bad behavior, right? And I do try I do try and get to a point of understanding. That is overall my goal. Now, I did want to take a chance to explain why, in the end, I picked to be more on the side of supporting Palestinians in a ceasefire. One thing that is thrown at me a lot is, why aren't you speaking about other atrocities within the world? And the very simple answer, without going deeply into it, is there just isn't enough time in the day. And it's unrealistic to expect every person who is upset about what's happening in Gaza to also be putting all of their time and energy into every other conflict and atrocity. Now, I will say, after looking at everything, if my end goal is to see as little civilian suffering as possible, then for me, it was a no-brainer to be on the side of a permanent ceasefire and the protection of Palestinian lives, right? Because the longer and longer, in my opinion, and I am just some chuckle on the internet, I'm not a Jewish individual, I am not a Muslim individual, I am not Palestinian, I am a pagan from America with an opinion. And everybody on this app has an opinion, right? So my opinion really doesn't matter. But if we're looking at rate of harm, in my view, the easiest way to get civilians, regardless of which country you're supporting, the easiest way to protect civilians would be to end the bombing.
The easiest way to protect civilians is not to attack civilians.
That's true. And you're not wrong in that. And I am in a place of privilege where I am privileged enough to say peace at all costs, right? Don't go after civilians. Don't invade foreign countries.
Don't kill their babies.
Don't harm people in this way, ya dinguses. Yeah. Because that's not going to do anything except force Israel to respond. And if I had to speculate, which is a dangerous road to go down already, but if I had to speculate, H Group's intent was to show the world and the Palestinian people that Israel was going to respond in the way that they did. See, they are doing all of the evil and blah, 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 blah. I am here to protect you. It's a whole different conversation on whether or not Hamas is actually there to protect people. I personally don't think that what they're doing protects anybody.
But why didn't they protect their people though?
You mean on after October 7th?
Why didn't they, this was a couple of years in the making, right? So why they stockpiled all the supplies for them? Why didn't they stockpile supplies and prepare to protect their people? If they are freedom fighters, they are liberators, why didn't they, they had these tunnels, they could have built shelters too. Why did they not take steps to protect their people?
So I think in that regard, and we can make comparisons, say, to like the American government, right? The American government tells us all the time that they fight for our protections and our freedoms, and we know that fundamentally that's not true. And I think that the H Group is equally as corrupt as America, as Israel, as the Gaza government, right? And I think the inherent nature of evil individuals is to try and take as much power as possible. And I do believe that in the end, that was probably a huge drive for H Group. The best way to get to the world behind us is to show the world that Israel will do the immoral things that we claim they will do. And unfortunately, Israel accepted that challenge and has shown us that over the last 6 months. I personally do not believe that 6 months of mass bombing does anything except put civilians and hostages in extreme risk of being destroyed.
But why wasn't there a public outrage against H Group?
There was.
Not loud enough. Why wasn't there the public outrage and demand that H Group release the hostages? It wasn't loud enough. It wasn't. And to this day, it's not loud enough. To this day, we can acknowledge, and, you know, I only want to speak on what I know of. And I know that, you know, I'd said that there's footage of H Group taking aid, and you're saying that, you know, how do we know for sure if it's H Group? And, you know, that can be a conversation for another time, but why can't there just be this unanimous agreement? And I know why, because again, we talked about there's a spectrum, and you don't fall under that spectrum. That my understanding is you don't consider H Group to be freedom fighters, correct?
I think that where H Group are freedom fighters, they lost the plot a while ago. Does that make sense? Where like
meaning since October 7th.
I mean, I think that there could be an argument, or not, maybe not an argument, but a conversation to be had that they lost the point prior to October 7th, right? But again, I do think it is important that you and I do sit in a place of privilege where I think it's really hard for us and other Americans as a whole to understand the point you would have to be at to have an armed resistance like that. Again, I'm not saying it's okay, right? Or that the actions were moral. But I do think that you and I do sit in a little bit of a place of privilege where it's much harder for us to understand that type of desperation.
Okay, so respectfully, and I mean this respectfully, yes, we sit in a place of privilege being Americans and being able to have this conversation right now while people are experiencing pain and horror right now. But my level and your level, or rather, idea of what that privilege is very different. Because you don't have to decide if you're going to wear your Star of David on the outside of your shirt or under your shirt, depending on if you go to the grocery store or depending on if there's a protest going on. You don't have police parked outside of your child's preschool.
No, but I have been taken to court twice for abuse just based on who my partner is. Okay, and who I choose to love. So like, whereas I'm not saying they're the same thing.
As a response of October 7th. Not you as a person, as a response of October 7th. Again, it's not a competition, but it's also, it's not exactly the same. And that is why you admitting, and again, it's not an attack, it's just a discussion, but you admitting that you don't have direct ties, that you are waiting to see what happened. You were waiting to see Israel's response, and then you were going to make your decision. Where was your trauma response? And this is you in general. Where was the world? Zoe, I saw her comment this, and it's true, but where was the world's trauma response on October 8th? And you know why there wasn't one? Because these platforms would not allow us to post the footage, that we got strikes and warnings and whatever. We were not allowed to share it. People were not allowed to see. The algorithm wasn't allowed to pick it up. It was taken down. It was not believed. It was denied. There was not a mass trauma response of the occurrence of October 7th. 1,200 people is 1,200 people.
Well, also, a trauma response is not just speaking out. Trauma shows itself in many different ways. Also, I didn't make my decision after seeing the response. I chose how I was publicly going to stand after watching the response. But also, again, October 8th, I saw a lot of footage of what happened. It was widespread. And those on the other side are having the same issues. When we try and share documentation and footage, we are also getting censored. I don't think this is a heavy censorship on one side and not the other. I do think that there is censorship on both sides. Some of it comes from TikTok admitting that they don't have humans actively overwatching or helping overwatching the algorithm AI, right? Things get reported. If you get so many reports so quickly, they just take it down to play it safe, right? And sometimes you can appeal, sometimes you can't. Yeah. But I don't think that there is some inherent push to only silence pro-Israeli content, because you see the lack of push to the For You page and things like that on both sides.
But here's the thing, the response from Israel, my understanding, the response from Israel did not happen until after October 13th. That was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That was about 6 days that this platform could have been inundated with the reality of the 7th. And that, along with the fact that a lot of the footage was not released out of respect for families, out of respect for the Jewish religion, out of respect for the fact that we don't flaunt, and I say flaunt, for the world to see, that it was the way that people were brutalized.
Well, hold on a second. Because if they weren't releasing the footage, then how could you have the expectation that on the 8th the footage would be out there en masse? You know what I mean?
The GoPros. This is the footage from the GoPros. This is
I'm sorry?
This is the footage from the GoPros. This is the footage that Hamas filmed themselves.
Right.
The GoPros. I'm
Okay.
saying that imagery was not able to be shown on this platform.
Yeah, it goes against community guidelines. You can't show that type of information, which is why we have, like, even on our side,
But
we have ways of, like, here's a screenshot, here's what I can't show, but if you go here, here's where you can see it uncensored. So you really do have to kind of play the game with the algorithm in order, unfortunately, in order to get your message out.
Did you see what you just kind of admitted to, though? And not, this isn't a gotcha, but it's just to put things into light. Because of the brutality of October 7th, because of the way the H group massacred and brutalized and slaughtered innocent people, babies, on October 7th, and I say babies because any child, you know, I know people say, oh, there wasn't 40 beheaded babies. I'm not talking about that headline. I'm talking about babies as like our family, our people. Because of the way that they were brutalized and slaughtered and taken from this earth on October 7th, we could not show that footage, that it was that horrible, that we could not show it. Well,
Right, but you can have the same conversation on the other side.
Hold on, but no, because now, not now, but when retaliation happened in Gaza, my timeline was flooded with babies under rubble in Gaza. It was flooded with that horrific images that, yes, people should see because it is the reality that we're living in. But if you're only seeing that in your algorithm, of course you're going to villainize Israel. Of course.
Right, but then we're having a conversation about social media and the algorithms, not about people, right? And how to handle this empathetically and with humanity.
Right, but the people are influenced by social media and the algorithm. That we're talking on a TikTok platform, that we're talking on the toxicity platform ourselves, that we're talking about the very calculated efforts that were made to polarize people, to separate people, that we're talking about a trauma response, that people did not have a trauma response to October 7th because one, and you're the
But they
exception.
did.
Hold on, but one, people celebrated it. They celebrated it. There was no trauma.
Okay, but here's the thing, and this is where I'm going to push back, because yes, there are horrible people on the pro-Palestinian side that praise the actions of Hamas. There are so many people on the pro-Israeli side praising the actions of the IOF and praising the fact that these people are being unalived. So I think when it comes to conversations like this, instead of pointing at what the other group is doing that's bad, right? I do think we as a whole, right, if people are about the human cost of this conflict, people as a whole need to talk and promote about the human side of the conflict. They need to also do less pointing and more talking. How do we inject empathy back into a deeply concerning situation, a deeply emotional situation, where you've got two groups, right? You have Israelis and Jewish individuals, and you have Muslims and Palestinians. And both of those groups throughout history have been horribly dehumanized and made to be evil, right? I think it is important that we as content creators, if we are about the human side of it, right, then I do think we need to discuss, what is my phone doing? What? Verify continue. Hold on.
Yeah, it's because of some of the comments.
Oh, okay. I was
Not
going to
behaving.
say, I didn't know what that meant. But I do think we need to start having a bigger conversation about how to bring empathy and the human condition back into what's happening. Because what I see from both sides, and it's not appropriate, is the all or nothing dehumanization and vilifying of those on the other side. And we have to remember that we're people. Mm-hmm. We have to remember that we are people that sometimes have emotional dysregulation, right? And I've seen a few of the videos. I intentionally went looking for some more videos of people tearing down the missing person flyers, right? And what is seen very clearly there is you have two individuals who are emotionally dysregulating. You have somebody seeing the posters, having a big feeling about an important situation and physically reacting. And you have the person watching the other person do that, and they are also having their big feeling and their reaction. And it's a fight back and forth. When in the end, you got two chuckles from America who are trying to interact with each other, but haven't figured out how to emotionally regulate through these kinds of things. I think we need grace for the emotional side of this, because you and I both, we've gotten a little testy with each other, and it's because it's an emotional situation. It is important, right? I think we need to work on having a little more grace. I think we need to work on being mindful of that idea of like social media trauma responses, right? So sometimes when someone leaves a comment, my brain's like, oh, you're trying to trap me. I can't have a good faith argument with somebody who's trying to trap me, right? And so we need to be mindful of that bias. We need to keep our humanity intact and our empathy intact. And I think we need to have broader, more in-depth conversations on how to achieve that goal while encouraging both sides to demand a ceasefire. Because the actions of Israel currently, today, is causing everyone in that region to be unsafe. And if the goal is to give people the chance to live freely and safely in that area, then the bombing has to stop.
And why isn't there a unanimous public outcry for the hostages to be?
There is. You don't have a unanimous, like, this idea that the world in totality, hold on, this idea that the world in totality has to stand up and speak out every single day and make content about the hostages. I think there is a place there to say that when people are demanding a ceasefire, that's what they're doing. Because the permanent ceasefire leads to the safety and the freedom of the hostages.
If that was the case, then they would not tear their posters down. If that was the case, then they would not desecrate and put swastikas on their faces of the babies. If that was the
right, but again,
they would be taken to the streets and protesting that. If that was the case, that would be the unanimous protest in the streets to release the hostage. That's what they would be chanting. Not from the river to the sea, not free Palestine. They would be chanting, bring them home, let our people go, release the Beavis babies. They would be chanting that. So I know you don't mean to do this, but it is a form of gaslighting for you to say that, because that your algorithm God bless your algorithm, is if you have been on this platform for 6 months and you still have humanity in you, because I know you do, but you are not, you are the exception. And listen,
And what I'm
I
trying
know
to
that there will
say
be
is I
someone on
don't
my
think
side.
I'm as rare of an exception as you think I am, especially based on the conversations I have had with a wide range of people. Are there some hateful trolls that you'll never get through to and they are only here to cause rage and dissent? Yes, but that is not the vast majority of humans who are talking about this conflict, regardless of what side they're on.
Okay, why are you putting, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, and then unfortunately, we're gonna have to wrap it up a little bit, but I understand that you're passionate about Operation Olive Branch, which my understanding is it's a fundraising to raise some funds so people can leave Gaza. Why is there not that passion to release the hostages? Because if that happened, and if H group laid down their arms, then there would be no need to raise funds for people to flee Gaza. Why is there not that unanimous presence and pressure and passion to release the hostages?
Because Bibi has stated publicly that even when the hostages are released, they will continue to attack and take Gaza. At which point, Hamas flat out said, if that's the case, then we will not release them until there's a permanent ceasefire.
Why did they refuse the last ceasefire?
Because it wasn't a permanent ceasefire. It was only a temporary ceasefire.
So what happens when there's a permanent ceasefire?
They said that they're going to let them go. And I encourage the whole world to demand, then hold them accountable for that. If you said a permanent ceasefire is what gets these hostages free, then I implore every single person on this app to demand a permanent ceasefire and then call Hamas on their bluff.
Okay, but
Call them on it.
you also acknowledge, and I'm asking you, do you acknowledge that Hamas has said that they will continue another October 7th, again and again and again, that is their goal. I don't care what people's interpretation of the charter is. That is what H group has said that they will continue to. That is what H group was plotting in the West Bank when those 3 members were taken out in that hospital in the West Bank. That is what they were plotting to continue to do. That is what they are plotting to continue to do. So you're asking us, the collective us, to believe that H group will just agree to a ceasefire, and then what? And then what?
Okay, so here's my follow-up to that. Okay? So, hypothetically, Bibi throws out a permanent ceasefire. All right, world, you've tied my hands. We'll do a permanent ceasefire. And they release the hostages, right? And there's another attack. What happens then?
Another attack by who?
From Hamas, right? So they turn around and they're like, hey, we got something out of that. I don't know what you would say that they got out of that, but we got something out of that, so we'll do another one. We'll do another attack, right? At that point, right? So we've been through all of this. They got their permanent ceasefire. We've got the hostages freed. And then there is another attack. What does that tell not only the UN and other countries and Israel, what does that tell the Palestinians? Like,
It's not going to happen.
the thing is that nobody has even, to the best of my knowledge, right? Because we both acknowledge there's a lot of information out there, and that no one individual is probably going to have it all for a long time. So, based on the information that I have and what I am aware of, it doesn't seem like there has been a long enough stop in the violence to even give Hamas the ability to do the right thing.
Okay, but like, you're saying that you're gonna give, and this isn't a smirk at you, I just, you're crediting a T organization with giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're gonna do the right thing when they have declared, like when people tell you who they are, believe them. And I say that to say that I equally believe that Bibi is scum. I equally believe that he has that.
So I want to ask you a quick question though. What's the point in working for any kind of change if you're only to believe what a person has done in the past? Like I'm in recovery.
This isn't past though.
Should
They
people
say it present. They say it presently. They say it in news broadcasts presently. This isn't past. These are leaders of age group.
So I would have been right then at the beginning of the conflict to just assume that Israel was going to behave poorly and behave immorally and just assume that and go from that point.
Please elaborate.
So as I've watched
baby, I have it.
as I watch the situations and actions over the last 25 years or so going on in that area, based on the words of Bibi prior to October 7th, and based on the words of his cabinet prior to October 7th, I could have assumed that Israel was only going to behave poorly, and I could have run with that assumption and been like some of the extremists on the pro-Palestinian side, right?
You're equating.
But I paused. I paused and gave Israel the opportunity to try and handle this in at least a little bit of a moral way. And each day that goes by shows me that that was probably a silly thing to do. I don't want to feel that way about humans. I don't want to feel that because you had the wrong reaction before, that your reaction will always be wrong. I think that that is counterproductive, and I think it leaves no space for growth for anyone on either side.
So I think that we should, I'm open to doing another discussion with you. If you
Yeah.
But the one thing I want to conclude with is kind of how I started with, based on October 7th and the brutality of October 7th with our families still in Gaza. In what world do you reward the Palestinian people for the actions of H Group on October 7th while you are at the same time acknowledging or accepting that H Group is the governing body, while at the same time acknowledging that they did absolutely nothing to protect their people, while at the same time acknowledging that they happily martyr their people and say on record that they happily encourage a very high birth rate because they happily martyr their people, that it is glorified. And so in what world do you anticipate, you keep saying Israel is making the world a more dangerous place for Jews and for Israelis by their actions. But what would you have Israel do? Because based on October 7th, they're absolutely, it's nothing H Group did on October 7th is making the world a better place for the Palestinian people. And also, we make these, I hear these comments, and you didn't see the survivors of the Holocaust go up in arms against the Nazi regime or against Germany. I mean, that the 6 million perished, and you didn't see that any survivors go, harbor this hostility for Germans. The Dresden, any families that survived that massive bombing in Germany, actual indiscriminate bombing, you didn't see them go up in arms against the British. So that mentality, like Palestinian people, you're just creating next generation of terrorists. You're giving them, you're
But they
infantilizing
did.
but you're infantilizing them as if they don't have the capability and the want better lives for themselves. To understand that they understand that age group is not helping them, is not helping them.
I think you're making some blanket statements and assumptions there.
What part?
Well, by stating that survivors didn't lash out against German individuals, and we know that that's not true. And
Well, okay, but you're saying that next generation of terrorists. So there's negative feelings, and then there's like actual like harboring terrorism, actually like planning to just become the next generation of age group. I just
do you know any of the origin stories for some of the Hamas leaders?
no.
So they're
I'll admit what I don't. I'll admit what I don't know. I don't know the origin stories of Hamas leaders, but I do know that there's talk that Israel created age group. And if
no,
that,
I'm not speaking along those lines. Like the thing that radicalized the individuals, and I'm trying, if I can get my computer to link, I'm trying to
you talk about
find
the
the
leaders,
names.
the age group leaders
But
that are in power right now, the multi-billionaire leaders that are in power right now.
But two of the original creators of Hamas were radicalized during the 6-Day War and the atrocities that they lived through during the 6-Day War. And so when I make comments about how the actions of Israel right now aren't leading to safety for the Israeli people, they're leading to more militants being created, more people being radicalized to hate that country. That's what I'm talking about. You can't go in and unalive families in mass. We have 17,000 children right now that are orphaned in Gaza. And I promise you, none of them are sitting there thinking that they're going to grow up to have Israel be their best friend. They're only thinking about the fact that it was the actions of Israel that took their families away. Whether it's misguided in totality or not isn't relevant, right? What they're experiencing will lead them through trauma and all the other things they're experiencing to become radicalized. So if there is something to be done about terrorism in that side of the world, it's not going to be the mass bombing of a 25-mile strip of land for 6 months. It doesn't protect the hostages, and it encourages the creation of more militants.
But are you saying amount of people is what is the deciding factor in radicalizing? Amount of people
No.
involved? So then
No.
with that logic though, any survivors of October 7th, fair to say that they're radicalized now?
Yeah, I mean, you can make that argument. I also,
But I'm
though,
not though.
but here's the thing.
But I'm not making that
I
argument.
will also state that the bad behaviors of another person do not justify other bad behaviors.
Of course
right?
not.
So, like, if I watch somebody.
But of course not. I mean but that's just it. Of course not. Listen, I think that we are in agreement that we both want peace, that we both believe in Jewish Israeli safety, Palestinian Muslim safety. We're in agreement with that, yes?
I believe so.
Yeah. And I think we're also in agreement that everybody else on this platform is making everything worse.
I think the innate design around this platform makes it worse.
Yeah. So we covered a lot. I think we're leaving each other with more to discuss, and I think that's the point of these discussions.
Yeah.
I haven't really been following the comments, so, maybe next time we'll have somebody that will address the comments, and people have specific questions that we can, talk about that more. But I think the point of this discussion was for us to, to open up the gates to talk.
Mouse is in the other room, right? Monitoring the chat.
Yeah.
And you had said I haven't had a chance to look at the comments, and they just yelled from the other room, "You don't want to."
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
But I will say, so when I get off of here, I'll download it and send it to you.
Somebody mentioned Tantora, okay, and yes, download live, whatever. Tantora was debunked, and you and I can talk about that next time too. But Tantora was debunked. The producer of Tantora was actually, I think, faced charges or lost their degree or something. And maybe we could have a whole other discussion on things that are debunked as well. But I think that's important to address. So, and people with laughing faces, like, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people that are not capable of having thoughtful dialogue, so they throw these emojis and LOLs, because it's a testament to your maturity that you're not able to have thoughtful discussions on my side and on your side too.
I think focusing on that, though, feeds them. Like, honestly, and I know I'm guilty about it. Sometimes a comment will come through that I know dang well I should just ignore, and I can't help myself.
Kitty calling me professional victim. Kitty just called me a professional victim. I don't even know what that means.
Well, I don't think that that's helpful dialogue at all. Like, and I think you and I both agree on that. And again, I do think that there does need to be a certain level of grace and empathy for humans, and the idea that we are not, again, it's not a binary. Every, pro-Pali individual is not part of a T group, and every Israeli individual is not part of white colonialism. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't a binary. And I do think that the sooner we stop talking in binaries, the easier it will be to have conversations like that.
Well, yeah. Cheers to us. I'm proud. I'm proud of us. I think we did a good job. I think it's hard not to get emotional, especially when you do have direct ties. But that doesn't make your feelings any less valid of anything that you're experiencing, regardless of if I have family and friends in Israel or not. It doesn't make your feelings less than. And I think that's important to highlight, that it's not a competition. And I've said that too. It's not a oppression Olympics. It's not a I'm hurting more than you. It's not a more people died here, so their pain matters more. That all pain is valid. And I think that more people really need to realize that. So thank you for coming with kindness, and we'll figure out next discussion time, and hopefully I'll figure out my live. Yeah, I didn't know there was all those logistics with getting set up. So
yeah, like I said, they won't even let me on my other one. Somebody reported me for being under 16. And even though I've sent my ID, like, I literally have jumped through every single hoop they've asked me to, and they're like, nope, you're underage. I'm like, I'm 40. I'm almost 40. So yeah, but hopefully next time we'll have you host, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I don't think you can send, like, downloaded videos through Messenger. So if you have a email that you're comfortable with giving me,
absolutely,
yeah, message it to me and I'll send you a copy of the live, because I do think that was a generous thing for you to offer me, and I want to make sure that I'm offering it back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, take care.
Have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, that was nice. I will say, I do enjoy having discussions. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that I do enjoy talking to people who don't agree with me. It does a couple different things, right? One, it lets you see you have several people who have been asking to also join the live.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do that, you can. I would suggest adding me into it so that I can immediately disconnect people that need to go away.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there are a couple people who want to talk about their experience as Palestinians. There are a couple people who want to talk about their experience as Jewish people. Several of them have said that they have, like, actual in-person experiences with this stuff. So if you want to give them the opportunity, you can. It'll be down here in the guest. Yeah. Here, while you're still sitting right here, are you aware so is this one from each side? This one, Palestine, I haven't seen that one. Okay. Well, let's see. You guys would like to do a little bit. I have a little bit more time before I have to jump off. So let's see. What kind of, please, respectful conversations.
Salam
My friend.
alaikum.
Hey, real quick, just so we make the app gods happy, can you let me know what your age is?
I am 40 years old.
Awesome. Thank you very much. What would you like to say, my friend?
So when the young lady said temporal debunked, I heard what their definition of debunked is calling the guy who made the documentary a self-hating Jew and he was a wacko, right? So it's not that it was actually debunked with facts. They just think the guy was a self-hating Jew who was a wacko because in the court case that the judge said dismissed everything was also an Israeli Zionist. So Tentora was not debunked. My mom was a part of Tentora. She was physically displaced, her and her family. Bad things happened to my mother. This is the problem I have with the Zionist regime, right? They keep saying that Pali would and nothing ever happened to us. When I was 10, when I lived in the West Bank, I had an M16 to my forehead.
Oh my.
The soldiers used to chase us around and torture us for fun. Like that happened. And whenever you bring it up, they'll say to you, well, why did they do that? What did you do? You know, it's ridiculous. My father owns a home overseas and we can't live in it. We can only stay there 3 months at a time. And if we stay over 3 months, we'll be kicked out permanently. There's so many things. I feel like there can be common ground made and we could eventually come if the far right stops they really just act like we don't exist. Nothing ever happens to us. They don't believe in cause and effect, right? So do they think people just want to boom themselves like just because? Like just like that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
There's cause and effect. If people feel like they can't ever get anywhere in life and they're going to be stuck under the thumb of an oppression, they're going to do things that they normally would not do. That's just how it is.
Well, and that's why I wanted to make a point of injecting some empathy into it, right? Regardless of what side you're on, I don't think anyone genuinely wants to see humans harmed, right? Like if you ask the individual person. And I think that, I don't know, so sorry. My brain jumped tracks there. That's why I made a point of pointing out the level of privilege that both Julie and I experience as Americans. Because we are in a place of safety and privilege where we can say things like, no one should harm another human being. Does that make sense? we haven't lived in a place where that type of armed resistance is necessary.
For sure, it makes a lot of sense. And I think what if it boils down to is if you give people self determination and movement and real rights. I'm not saying Palestinians are perfect and no Palestinian has done anything wrong, but can they actually be sent to a real court proceeding? Like, can they go through a real justice system? You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying, yes, there's Palestinians who've done bad things, but the way they're held accountable is horrible. You just put them in a military detention with no court.
Hold on 1 second. You're good. Yeah, Liz, you just had to go to work. You're good. Hold on. Sorry about that. My toddler was trying to escape.
Can I ask you a question? This is like what I asked. Right? I say, well, let's just say one of your kids threw a rock at a tank.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel like they should be imprisoned for a few years for that? Without a court case.
I don't.
Case. Like, that's the issue right there. Like, okay, it's a crime to throw a rock at a tank. Can you at least...
Careful.
Can you at least like court proceedings?
Oh no, I think I lost him. Or my hearing is just getting that bad, but I think I lost him.
I got a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Who's playing music?
Hey, I'm gonna drop you for just one moment. Send another request. I think that should help with the echo. Lincoln, you're not helping at all, my love. So let's see. Send me another request, okay? Hi, sir. Are you making potions? I can hear it. The whole group can hear it. I'm just gonna take that. I know, buddy. Can you tell me what's wrong? Yeah, you're good. I don't work. I mean, I do work. I work pretty hard. But as I'm sure you can all hear, I have a toddler that does need to try and get down for a nap. I do appreciate those who came by and watched our... No, he does not want Coco Melon. Not in this household. I already have to listen to the Elmo song 900 times a day. I do like Bluey, though. I do like Bluey. But yeah, so I do have to try. We haven't been able to successfully take a nap in almost 2 months, so I know I've got some big expectations. But I think so. Soul, I love Bluey as well, and I can think of a wide number of adults who need to spend some time watching Bluey intently and learning how to tap into their empathy. Look up the Grand Motif of Palestine. I will tell you, I have an unending list at this point of reading material and like stuff I need to look into. So I'm definitely going to try and do that. But I am going to try and get this squirmy little creature down for a nap. I think Julie and I are going to try and have another discussion, and we're going to try and invite some others to be a part of it. Again, respectfully, I know we don't agree on things. I know that we've got some differing views on how things should be handled, and I know. But let's try and see if we can reach some understanding. So the sun is shining here where I am. I hope it's shining where you are. And if you have done anything today that helps progress your life in a positive and healthy way, I am super excited and happy for you. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and maybe we'll see you again. Bye. Okay. End live.